Okay, I went through this earlier today. This was the thing that was done for Naperville, and it was fairly long, or at least it seems so. I got hard look at it. So I went ahead and made a copy and deleted a bunch of stuff, so that was kind of redundant. So we'll see what all's here. This would be finishing up my layout. Let me find a place. There we go. All right, so this is the branch line from Marshalltown out to Story City. And this time we'll talk about the last town that I modeled. We worked from Story City back. Built Story City, built the curve between Story City and Roland, built Skip McCallsburg, built the curve between Roland and Zearing, and now we're going to get from Zearing through Bromley back Marshalltown, which is staging. This shows it quite well here. We're going to talk about Zearing that's here and Bromley that's on that curve at the end. If we want to look at some maps, shows you where Zearing is at, about midway or a little past on the uphill climb out of the Iowa River Valley. And what's interesting is if you look at the track chart, there's a straight track that goes through a siding off of it and another siding that goes behind the depot. One would assume that that straight long track would be the main line, but it isn't. The main line is the middle one, the one that goes past the depot. And then there's a bunch of elevators and other things along that track that you think would be the main line. Only have a couple of pictures from Bill Armstrong taken at Zearing. You can see behind the engine, there's a block building. And that's the only photo I have of that building. So I winged the rest of it. But at the bottom, it shows you where this photo was taken. And one thing that we've always done when we've operated Zearing is we've actually switched the town on the way out. Real railroaders that I've talked to, they like to do the work on a stub-in branch or something that they're going to make a loop and go back home maybe the next day. They like to do the work on the way out and then zip back home when they're done. But it seems on this branch, they went all the way to the end and making set outs on the way, and then came back and shuffled cars on the way back. As you can tell, that other picture was on the main line. They're facing the other direction, and they're backing into that siding where all of the elevators are. And so from now on, I think I've thought about this, and I think that it's going to be actually better to just set out cars for Zearing and then place them on the way back. But I've got to run it here a couple of times to make sure. So now, to deal with Zearing itself, if we look at the little map at the bottom, one of the elevators is Zearing elevator. By now, by the time the photo was taken, it's part of a co-op. But at the time model, it was the Zearing elevator, and you can see it's just a regular crib elevator with a peak roof annex on it, like it's fairly common. The Billy Grain people, they owned basically 2 elevators, a feed mill, and this was their office. That building in the first photo that block building, that I only had that little bit at the end of it, that preceded this larger building here. Across on that track behind the depot is the lumber yard. And I photographed this in the late 80s, early 90s. This still stood. This was a coal shed that was there. And here's a picture of the depot way back in Iowa Central days, I'm sure. And then this is what it looked like probably in Northwestern days. We can see the old dealer down there. You can see behind depot those sheds that looks like you can see a little bit of by the hopper car. The main building of the lumberyard is to the right of the station, and you can see the small pulley grain elevator down at the end, and a little portion of the feed mill on the very left side. Here's some nice aerials of Vincent Mark collection. Vincent Mark was I don't know what he really did, but he went around taking pictures of everything in his airplane. And I suppose he sold the pictures to different, because he took pictures of schools and churches and anything that they could probably sell to and get some money for. But anyway, it's a nice photo of Zearing probably in the right around 1970. You can see where 3 boxcars are is that office building for the pulley grain, and then the elevator and the feed mill next to it, and then the old elevator down a little further down to the right, and then 3 oil jobbers on the other side of the street. And right center photo is the lumberyard with Associate. And by this time, they put in a ready mix also, a bulk concrete plant. This is a view from the other side, and this one in the lower right corner, see that Zearing elevator. According to the 1936 Directive Industries, thanks to Harding, these are the main industries in town. 3 oil dealers and 2 grain elevators and the lumberyard. Also online for 1956 is a business directory. It shows you all the people, all the businesses in town. This would be great. I want to try and I've been to the library in Story City, but couldn't come up with one of these. But I'm going to go back and check again. They should have some other business stuff that I might be able to find more information on. It's great for building LCL stuff or stuff that's going to be put on the team track. But anyway, we're going to build this. All my layouts sections are made on a slide-in base. It's basically a clean 2x2 with a kerf cut in it, and then a piece of masonite stuck in like a framework. This kind of shows how I'm putting it together. Only need glue and a bread nailer. For support, I took the leftover 1x2s and laid them in there flat. I needed a rounded corner to go from a narrower spot to the wider area. So I basically put a piece across there and then cut it off with a jigsaw. If we look in this picture, to the right will be the staging yard or Marshalltown, and then the curve where Bromley's located is that kind of rainbow-shaped piece of foam on the floor, and then where the drill and the level are will be Zearing, and that piece will slide out. Here I'm getting kind of a lot of people make a lot of drawings, and they do scale drawings of their track plans. And what I'm more interested, I know what the track plan is. I don't need to draw that. But what I'm more interested in is proportioning everything so I've got the proper room so that I can move cars past. When they're being loaded in an elevator, I need to have room to shove past so that if you leave one car to be loaded with cars behind it, when you come back, those cars will all be pushed down. Here I put on the fascia and the backdrop. Here it's painted. Now you notice there's some dates on this, and it really confused me because this says it's in March of 17. And pretty soon we're going to make a drastic change in dates. I thought I'd screwed up to begin with, but anyway, we'll take a look at the depot. The green line on here is where the fascia will be, and the blue line is where the backdrop will be. No use modeling anything that doesn't have anything to do with the railroad. I've cut out the basic shapes of the 4 walls for the depot, and now I'm kind of portioning where the windows are going to go and doors. Here I've got those cut in, and you'll notice the same thing is true of the depot at Store City. They had these peaks on the windows, and what I did is Grant Line makes a window with a peaked top like that, and I basically cut that off of their window and glued it on of the teaching windows they use. And also Charlie Duckworth, it's his idea to use the Lego blocks as corner supports. So here the depot is finished, and heat building bay windows. And there I have one photo when the bay window was taken off. So that's the way I built the damn thing, without the bay window. I hate them. Well, this will be the trackside view, and this is the or this, when you're operating the railroad, this is the side you look at. And you can see here now I'm getting got some buildings to use for place markers. The grain elevator, well, I'm going to use for a feed mill that's across the street from the trucks from the elevator. My last railroad just did the Red Star Oil down here in the corner. Now you notice we've skipped a year. We've gone from, I don't know what happened. If I screwed up the date on this thing, or I took a year off, I don't know what happened. But anyway, here I'm putting the streets across. Basically, the crossings are made with dimensional lumber, and then I'm using asphalt shingles upside down for the roads themselves. Here I've painted on glue, and I use a salt shaker to on the gravel. I was fortunate to get AFEs, or directories of the AFEs for all these towns I model, from Gene Green. And what I thought was interesting is it said construct a bulkhead machinery unload platform. I thought, what the hell is that? So I asked Gene, and he sent me the drawings for the thing. It's kind of interesting that in 1929 they drew this like this, but basically it sits on the side of a hill. If we look at this drawing, you can see that there's only one side, and then the which would bulkhead and one end, and the rest of it has got fill in it. So using the lumber I have that's closest what it said on the drawing, I did up the thing, the front wall here, and then taking it and stained it all with ink and alcohol wash, and then here I've glued it back together again. Now what I'm doing is there's only just the wall and the end. So I made a paper template. Excuse me, I got a drink of water. I made a paper template for the hillside that I'm going to put on. And then here's the hillside with some ceiling tiles stacked up off each other. And anybody that's a super neatnik isn't going to have any fun scenery because it is messy. And here you see I've started to add in some ground texture on the thing, make it look like it doesn't get used a day. And then here I've added some, finish off the rest of the backdrop and added in some dunny laying around that they've yanked out off of flat cars or gondolas or even box cars they've unloaded there. The problem I had is I was going to add a bunch of grain bins, the government grain bins, along the track, as you can see in this drawing. And I was going to put before I knew exactly where the machinery platform was supposed to be, I was going to put it over where the arrow is pointing to that coal yard. But no, I had to put it where it really supposed to be. And then I don't know what I put in the coal yard, where the where that coal yard was. So I went back and looked at the businesses in town, and I found that the power company had a guy there. So I thought I'd make a pole yard, fill in that area. So here basically this is just sifted dirt or screened. I have screens that I got from work that were discarded that are much better than sifters. They're measured as to how many holes per square inch, and you can sort anything from pea size all the way down to dust by stacking these things up and letting the stuff filter through. But anyway, here I've got some diluted glue on there.
Okay, I have to ask a question.
Yes,
What kind of green fuzzy stuff are you buying at Culver's?
green fuzzy stuff I'm buying at Culver's. Ha ha. Culver's makes nice cups that you can put green fuzzy stuff in.
Oh, okay. I thought
It's
maybe you were
actually,
buying rejects out the back door or something.
no. Yeah, that would be some nasty ice cream. No, it'd be something they sold on St. Pat's Day.
Oh,
But anyway, I use that container. It probably has blended down foam and turf in it. Not turf, but coarse ground foam. I'll get to that in a minute. But anyway, first I use that brush laying over there and just add some glue around, put down some static grass, and that's what that looks like. And after I vacuum it up, it looks like this. And then we're going to get to that Culver's cup, I think, in the next picture. Yeah, I went over it with hairspray and put on some of that stuff that was in the Culver's cup to give it a leafy, textured look. More, what's really kind of neat is if you take that ground, coarse ground foam, and put it between your finger and your thumb, and then run it along the top of that grass that's sticking up, it'll actually catch it with that hairspray on it, and actually make tops on it like milkweed. Really cool. But anyway, my other layout over at Train Fest, I bought these bases that are underneath these concrete things that are underneath the poles, along with a whole bunch of other little things that I don't know what happened to them all. I've never seen a guy there again that sold that stuff. But anyway, I had some cable reels I put there. Later on, there'll be some elevators there, not elevators, transformers from SS Limited. I had this Peachy stiff arm I had nothing to do with, so I found these little guys and we're actually unloading poles so you can bring a carload with poles and unload them there. One more spot for a different type of car. Now we'll get the elevators on the back side. I'm keeping that mill from a railroad and using it over again as the feed mill that was at Pulley. But being smart farmer's grain, this elevator is now going to become farmer's elevator. I had some of the details left over after 10 years or more, and they still were good. So I was able to match the elevator up to the feed mill. And now that office where we saw just that little bit of specking of it, we're going to make that plastic strut block, some windows, doors. That stuff is fairly thin, so I'm using some for a backing to veneer it onto is just some like 40 thousandths in styrene. And being there's going to be no back to this building, the piece at the bottom with the splice on it is just leftover styrene to use for the back. I put a bulkhead in there just to keep kind of square from sucking in. This shows the inside with the hip roof attached. I hate making hip roofs, but I got that done. This one here has Clever Models makes shingle strips for the shade shingles. And over Train Fest one time, they were there, and I bought packs from them. So that's what I put on this guy. And then here it is in a fuzzy photo pretty much finished. And now we'll go to pulley grain. I'm keeping the little elevator is all pulley gets now. But I hate to have things truncate into the backdrop, because I used to, in our house we had before now, we had a front porch with a swing. And I would sit out there on that swing. And if I looked across the street and down at the other side of the street, I could see into the backyards of those houses. But if I looked straight down the street on my side of the street, all I could see was the front of the houses. So if I were to ever use those, what the hell they're called, the pieces that just you put flats, you put along on the walls, they would be on the fascia side, not on the back side. But what I tried to do here, to make it look a little longer, was to continue the unloading shed basically at a 90-degree angle, but to make it look like it's into the backdrop. And then after the building is painted and some decals added, so everybody knows who it is. In the Zearing grain elevator we talked about earlier. Again, I don't make drawings, but I do have to make a drawing in order to cut it out. And it's hard to tell on here, but there's probably 5 different revisions on this thing before I actually get around to cutting it out. And then it is cut out, and from photos that I had, there was evidently rods going through the thing to hold it together, so that there were nut castings on the outside and some strips that support on the ends too. This shows the thing when it's painted. Doubt if it had a sign on it, but operators need to know where they're supposed to put something. And this one here had enough room that I could actually add the loading or unloading shed on the back, and you can see it's raised up a little bit from the main building. Now this thing, instead of building that peaked roof annex, I really like these steel plate bins or sidles, if you will. They're all over the place here in the Corn Belt. They must have been some that came after wood, but before the corrugated material that dominates things now. I've got some pictures of the roofs of these things, and it's basically just a slope cut out of plastic, and then some Zearing strips put on a pirate shape and SS limited vents. The actual steel plating is just printed by clever models, and then I glued it onto some PCV pipe. This shows that I put those on a basin and set them up next to the elevator. Used a Tichy walkway, and then I made the auger out of just a piece of square styrene and kind of rounded the bottom of the housing off, put a motor and a belt in the end, or belt cover. And then the supports that hold it up are supports for slope sheets in hopper crops, resin leftovers. Here I painted things up, added a conduit and a motor connection box. And here's some weathering put on it, as they do have spills. Now we'll look at the coal shed. This is that photo I showed you earlier that I took some time back. Here's what the back of it looked like. Always surprising to me, because you've got a door open to the track side, but you have like an office on the back side. Oops, too many buttons here. Okay, well, this is the rendition, looking at my photo and also that Vincent Mart photo that we looked at earlier. And then this would be the side facing the track. I have to use AK Interactive Heavy Chipping. It's liquid. If you have a well-stocked hobby shop, a lot of them will have AK Interactive display, all kinds of stuff that they sell, mostly it's used by the tank modelers, but it really works good for other things as well. So I basically paint these buildings with a couple of grays and maybe a tan of acrylic or enamel, not acrylic, but enamel or lacquer. Then you paint on, you use a brush to put on that AK Interactive. Then you have to spray it with an acrylic. And it's strange, once the acrylic dries, then you wet it again. And it kind of softens it up. Then you can use your knife blade to go along and scrape off the chip off, basically, that acrylic paint. And on the doors here, probably a little sandpaper was used, and then some M&StLs, maybe some colored pencils. And this is the back, the part that you would see when you're operating the layout. The roofing material on this building and the green one, I got that over at Greenfest. There's lots of vendors that come over there that sell good stuff. You know, I have friends try and get the best deal on the locomotives, and I look for the littlest booths there because they've usually got the stuff I can use. But alas, no train fest again this year. Just kind of zoom in that aerial shot long after they were still getting coal in. It's like they put something in there like straw bales or something. And then this is that what I'll call a sack house. Even if the lumber yard is a block or two away from the railroad, they would have a building like this next to the tracks that they could unload cement, lye, whatever came in bags that wanted to sell, and they store it in this building that was dry, and then they go down and get it with the customer or for the customer. This would be the part that faces track. You can see here I've brushed on just that gray before I put on the white lacquer over the top. They're not lacquer, but acrylic. Well, these are the two buildings when they're set in place. I put some sacks inside that guy. I had some vents from. I picked up a whole bunch of SS Limited parts at a Socony one time, and what's really irritating is that JT or JTT sell straw bales or hay bales, and in their package you get so many of the rectangular bales and so many of the big round bales. Now, you know, most guys are going to one or the other. So anyway, I had to buy two packages to get what I needed. And then I gave a friend the models more modern times, the round bales. So now we're going to take a look at the oil dealers. There's three of them, as you can see. This is a Sinclair dealer. He's on the back side by the street. These tanks are the two horizontal tanks, I believe, are well, the one is the small one is a Walthers. The one bigger one at the back, I think, is a plaster casting of the much sought after Grant Line tanks for their oil distributor, and the tall ones are Walthers from that Red Star we saw earlier, and then the shack, the warehouse is made out of styrene. And you'll notice here there's a second standpipe. There's one, a homemade one in front of the tank, then there's one here to the left of the building that came out of the Walther sets. That's for a different oil dealer, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Oh, this shows it. Let me go back again. This kind of you know, it's what I call roughed in. And then here it is, basically, I'll say finished. A lot of debris, added around. It makes it makes the scene look kind of pop more, makes it look more real, especially in this time period. Things were messier than they are now. Another photo from the other end show. I just get these, go search on Google images for Sinclair stuff, and then print them out and cut them out and glue them on. And then this is the Socony Vacuum or mobile dealer. He was I have to believe the last guy to come into town, because you can see here that they put the bulk plant on the south side of the tracks, but there wasn't enough room to be able to spot a car there. So they actually put their standpipe under the tracks so they could spot a car on that north siding, which is kind of interesting. Not unusual, but interesting. Here again, I bought a Walther's oil dealer, and the tanks come in rings, and I made them this tall kind of to match the photo. I used their modified and used their loadout shed a little bit, and then made the warehouse to kind of match the real one. And again, here's that guy with some signs added. And another photo of it. And then I put this on their loading spout on the other side of the railroad from the actual facility. And because I had a bunch of valves left over, I added a hose there that they could hook up to the bottom of a tank car if they chose to. And being as I have the business directory, I was able to put on the name of the guy that would have been operating that dealership. And then here it is with trying to match the photograph with the barrels stacked up and other things around. Usually SS Limited stuff that I got in that haul. And then I had that tanker body back there is left over from a kit that I had. It says I'm unstable. They're right about that. This shows the Standard Oil dealer. Is there anybody still here? Everybody's quiet.
Yep, I'm still here. You're doing fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
your internet link is a little
Okay.
tricky because you're not coming through 100%. So
Okay, that's what I was afraid of.
We're
But
all
anyway, this is a standard. Okay, this is Standard Oil dealer. You can spot them a mile away because of that hip roof, almost square warehouse. They
Yep.
use them a lot. Again, these are tanks that there's one smaller one and four bigger ones that are plaster castings that were cut shorter to fit into the space I had. Another hip roof building. I use cut paper templates out to make the pie-shaped pieces. Here that did go together fairly well. I was surprised. These bases are all plaster castings again, to copy of those that were in that Grant Line structure that costs $1 million if you can find one. Here I've added some wire for piping and some valves. Now, even though the real one didn't have a walkway on it, I had this leftover stuff. I thought, well, I'll put a walkway on it. And it's Central Valley stairs and Tichy walkway. Now, this is the other side of the building, and I bought this Standard Oil trucks. I think it's Mini Metals, and I believe it's correct in the coloring that it is, but it just doesn't look right to me. I've never seen a Standard Oil truck with gray on it. So I basically repainted it, cut out printed out standard oil and some logos on a piece of paper, cut that paper out, and then put it onto the tank of the truck. And then I had this, I built this loadouts facility, this station out of wire to match one that I saw up on the Great Western and Mankato line in Minnesota. And looked like they had something like this here from that aerial photo. And then I had this guy in this goofy pose, and he worked out perfect for putting fuel in the Now this is labeled scenery, but I don't know why. But I didn't change anything. What I've done here is just sprinkled along with a brush on the tracks, added ground foam, and I mean ground foam, but static grass, usually number 2 millimeter, because I use code 55 track. And one thing that I always do and would suggest is that you want to make a footprint of where a building's going to go, and then put down the scenery and add the building last, because then you can nestle it down in amongst the scenery, and you won't have to worry about trying to get your grass applicator up close to the building. This is showing using just dabbing little bits of glue on the ground. And then after I'm done with it, you can see that a lot of grass and still plenty of dirt and cinders. And I made the outhouse, the 2-holer there for men and women. The little shed in the center is actually a plastic building that I've had for 100 years. So I repainted it and reused it. And again, the stack of ties came from over at Propst. Wanted to put in, being this be a section house, the stuff I remember around section house near where I lived, put some rail down. Here's a sand ballast, some blocking for re-railing cars. We'll look a little, I think we got it closer up. Yeah, tie plates, spike buckets, other trash, car jacks, acetylene, oxyacetylene. This is more crap. You always can't have enough junk. I bought this package of, it's a cast metal over at Train Fest again. And this stuff all came out of that. I had to just paint it. What also was in that sack is these appliances. And they were supposed to be scraps, junk. But I looked at them, and for the time period I modeled, they would be brand new. So I sent them here to make it look like they just came in as LCL shipments. Well, I showed this picture, I think, online somewhere. And the guy says, well, that stuff would have come in wood crates at that time. So I had to take some wood and make some crating and then tear it apart. I don't know if there should be a hand saw and a crowbar and maybe a hammer laying there. And then I used to have an RTA truck on my previous layout, but I was able to print out and paste on, again, from that business directory. And here they're loading appliances to take back to the hardware store. And the weeds, I've sort of talked about them. We'll talk about a little more, I guess. Here it is. You know, the buildings are marked out where they are. The glue is put around the edges of the buildings, but being I'm going to put weeds here, it's not solid. If it was going to grass, it would be solid. And here's the after put down the static grass, vacuumed it up. And here I've got well, I guess that cup holding something other than and this kind of shows that before and after photo here of how the weeds look up next to the buildings, being you put the buildings down after the weeds have been put down. Here's a close-up one. I'm gonna have another drink.
It's looking good, Clark. Looking really good.
But again, from my handy dandy Culver's cup, dumped a bunch of ground foam up on top of the grass. You know, you put down the grass and you say, wow, that looks really good. But it looks even better when you mess it up.
Yeah.
And in this case, these silos were on a base, so I couldn't get at it with the static grass machine. So this is all Scenic Express tufts that I've glued on all the way around, and sprinkled on some ground foam to kind of blend them all together. And then around the depot, just a little bit here and there, going up next to the building.
Mm-hmm.
And backdrops. It's possible to go out nowadays and take photos of an alley scene, and because of all the air conditioners and the dumpsters. So I have this great idea. Bob Gretler, who's on here, he has one of these. Bob can help me. I can't remember the name of the people that make this stuff.
Downtown Deco.
Yeah, downtown. Yeah, downtown Deco. This came off of their website. I went and basically downloaded this, and then pieces from Bob's layout. Then I took a picture of that also. So then with the magic of PowerPoint, I was able to cut and paste and put some trees in there and some grass in the front and kind of blend them all together. It's still a little too sharp edges, but you get the picture that you're looking at, because the city itself and the highway were up on a hill and the railroad was down behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Here's that hill again, where the machinery platform is, with the backdrop in place. And you can see I want to make kind of a fall scene. And a lot of these pictures I want to model the last of September, 1st of October. So I blend in the backdrops with some craft paint. And then here you can see one craft paint leads to another. You know, you can't have just one. And this is basically what I'm going to use to blend and touch up what I'm going to do with this scene. Evidently, that's my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Here, this is a piece of backdrop after after this actually was taken by the M&StL. Now I used this on my last railroad. Actually, this scene on the back is also on Tony Custer's layout and Bill Darnaby's layout. But these houses were about 2 blocks from where I used to live. And I just stuck them all together and put them on the backdrop. And this would be the first train into Zearing, only it's coming from Story City. But maybe it came from Story City. And
It's on the return route. Yeah.
Yes. But it just poofed. It appeared as Story City and came this way. Well, now we'll talk about Bromley, that little place that
Oh, yes.
on the curve. This is an old picture. There was a lot of stuff there at one time, but Bromley is just down here on the corner. It's one siding. Well, it's actually a spur. And this is from the 30s. We're looking at the fees. You can see the railroad spur coming off the main line across the bottom and going north. And then eventually the railroad disappears, but they keep mining it. And now it's just, it looks like it trails or some kind of recreational area. But you can still see along the bottom where the railroad ran. So this is my leftover pieces that I'm using for that curve at the end of the railroad. I've got what I'm going to call an east end and a west end, but with the drawing effect that you get from using foam, I've tried different things on the curves, and this one I glued leftover hardboard underneath it to see what would happen, and it works pretty good. Basically the west end, everything on the railroad is built on this table. Nothing's built in place, but some carving and used cork roadbed this time. The other curves, you know, are made out of home a bit. But you can see here, looking at this middle Minerva Creek that that winds its way along the railroad, that there's sand deposits on the insides of the curves. So this little bit here, when I put this little piece in to show that the railroad's running by the river, I added some really lightweight, I think it's probably grout that I used on the inside there of the curve. Oops. Trigger happy here. There, that takes. Okay, now this stuff here is not, I think it's Knox. The other stuff that I used on the other curve was blue shops, and that stuff's horrible. This stuff looks really good. So I didn't even have to put any of that expensive JTT stuff in front of it. Just a photo in the back of it and paint it some, and it looks really good. I like it. Now here we've got that west end kind of set in place. And that little, where the cornfield is, and it's on a little piece, probably, I don't know, 5 inches high, 4 inches high. Then the spur track goes behind that. So you can reach in there and, if you need to. Oh, this shows I'm adding a color to the, gotta have the black dirt on the sides of the river. And then here, the ground foam is in play, or the ground foam, the static grass and ground foam. But I used Mod Podge for the water. Put coats on. Go down, put a coat on in the morning, put another coat on in the evening. And after about 4 days, it looks okay. It's not smooth anyway. Now the east section of that curve is going to be, we're getting closer to the, coming out of the Iowa River Valley, and it's more rugged terrain. There's hills, trees, and very little roads, but we've got roads here. But this is going to be my view block from staging to the actual portion of the railroad. Here again, 2 roads, 2 mile road on, there's going to be an intersection off camera here on the section of the back of the curve. Jason took the photo at the bottom. I took the photo at the top. And I use those things a lot, especially that top one. I've used that. I bet I made a half a mile backdrop just rearranging that photo up there. But anyway, here they are. I wanted to, when you walk down these aisles, I wanted something to catch your eye. And I figured this road going winding up over the hill would be some kind of an eye focuser. So that's in the middle of that aisleway when you're looking on it. And then the other trees off to the side. And then there's the supposedly the station at Bromley. I took these photos of farms years ago, and we used them on Jay's layout. I thought I could recycle them on mine. So what I've done here is I made a rise and put the farms back behind it. And then the road is going to go over the top. So it really gives the illusion of distance rather than just having things into the backdrop. Here I'm putting the rest of the backdrop on around the view block. I've added the grass there before I put the backdrop in place. Again, I use a fan brush, and there's a name for that thing that looks like a pitchfork. But I use that to dab on these fall colors and to blend those trees together. This would be evidently a picture after I've used the paint. And I'm doing the road here. I painted the road first with a paint, and then here it is with gravel on it and ground foam in place, fence. It's like it's about done. Oh, and then the grass again, where there's a split. All these things made in 2 pieces, and there's a split in the middle. So I just packed in the grass there and hide that gap. And then here I've gone over with hairspray and add more ground foam on the top to give it that leafy appearance. I tried to do some sumac bushes. Since I've done these, I found a deeper, redder foam, so I've remove these and replace them with something different that looks a little closer. These look like somebody left a bunch of tomatoes on top of them. Anyway, here's kind of a view looking at this thing with the leafy material up on top of the grass stands. I was told this is actually the scale pit. The aggregate dealer there, but I was told it was originally the M&StL depot. I kind of doubt it, but I needed a depot, so I used it. Here I made a building that's fairly close. Cut the mulligans out of the windows. Got to have an outhouse. It's open to the trackside so the train guys can stop and use the facilities if they need to. Here I'm trying to put the grade and grade crossings in. I'm using trying to glue down some sheet foam, and then I'm going to fill in with gravel to get up to it. Oops, I went far. But anyway, that wasn't going fast enough, so I came up this red-green approach to getting a heater up there to try and dry things quicker. It's a good thing I have. I thought that was worth taking a picture of my. I think I need to get some red and green suspenders for sure. Trees. The standard nowadays is scenic super trees. Here you can see some scraps. The stuff I used to bottom. That blue coffee can is full of a diluted, kind of a milky glue. And I dip them in there and then fill them with stuff. Now here you can see some of them are in place. I had some evergreens. I got them somewhere. And I thought I might as well use them. So I put those back behind the depot. And here I've added some over on the west side, showing the forested area. And along the river. And so this is what Bromley looks like if you were to walk down to the end of the hallway, or the aisle, I should say. And that's it, all done, finished.
Yep.
Beautiful
Nice,
job, Clark. Beautiful.
Well,
Yeah,
I
very nice.
I shortened it up from what it was. I think,
And that is the Bromley Depot. I have an old photo with a M&StL steam engine in front of it. And the end looks exactly the same, just a different paint scheme. So,
okay, great. That's good to know then. Okay,
yep.
so we're all done here. I can get rid of this.
Great.
Yep.
Okay,
Great stuff.
Yep.
now if you want me to do more sometime, we're done with this. We can talk about it. Do something
Sounds
different.
good. Yeah,
You get
I've got it. My classes are resuming on next Thursday, but I think they're going to be such that I can do both on the same night. I think we're going to go early, but they haven't told me for sure yet. So we'll plan on going again on Thursday. If anybody's interested in presenting, just let me know. And we'll keep at it. I did record this, so that'll be up hopefully tomorrow. It may be Saturday before I get to it. Now I'm back to school, but we'll see.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, excellent job, Clark. Thanks, everybody.